So, Francis Ford Coppola has finally released his self-acclaimed Magnum Opus, Megalopolis. It's a massively dividing opinion and is already one of the biggest ever box office flops. Described by Coppola as a Roman epic set in the modern-day Roman Republic, the United States, and the New Rome, New York. The film delivers a take on the Catiline conspiracy, a failed coup d'etat led by Roman politician Catilina against his arch-rival Consul Cicero. Catiline planned to build a utopian society by eliminating debt for all citizens of the Republic. And this is a major inspiration for Megalopolis' main character, Caesar Catilina, played by Adam Driver. The crucial leading question of Coppola's film being, is the society we live in today the best one available to us? As it explores Caesar Catilina's desire to build a utopia and those who stand against him. Adam Driver delivers Shakespearean-style monologues and feels right at home in a script designed to allow him to speak at length whenever he is on screen. Opposing him are Mayor Cicero, played by Giancarlo Esposito, and Claudio Pulcher, played by Shia LaBeouf. The rest of the cast is filled with well-known and seasoned Hollywood veterans including Natalie Emmanuel, Aubrey Plaza, Jon Voight, and Lawrence Fishburne. Despite a stacked cast and one of the most venerated directors at the helm, the film is the biggest flop of the year so far in terms of domestic openings. Even the much maligned Borderlands movie made $8 million in its opening weekend. In comparison, Megalopolis made $4 million domestically and just $5 million worldwide. But great movies have failed previously at the box office and are still beloved. For example, Iron Giant and Fight Club. So, is Megalopolis one of these films? The quick answer, the short answer from my perspective, no. I think this film is really, really bad for a multitude of reasons. As obviously I'll break down here today, but whether it be the very large cast who, for the majority of them, feel like there's very little reason for them to be in this film. You know, they're all A-listers or at one point were A-listers in their career, and they're here, but there's very little reason for them to be here other than it's Francis Ford Coppola, so if he asks pretty much any actor in Hollywood to work with him, they probably will. Aside from that, the script, I think, is really poor. There's no continuous plot. There are plenty of scenes that I feel like could have been cut but aren't cut because this is a film that is self-indulgent. It's by a director who is self-indulgent. It's his vision, it's his money. So what we're seeing is everything he wants us to see. He's not going to cut it because he spent money on this and because he believes everything that he's filmed is worth seeing. So there's a lack of editing. There's a lack of consistency from scene to scene about, okay, how does this scene connect to the previous one? What is the through line? You hear directors like Steven Spielberg talk all the time about storyboarding their script because that's easier than looking at words on a page for them. If you put this film on a storyboard, I wouldn't be able to make sense of anything that's going on. Next, I would say the cinematography, CGI, setting, design, costumes are all sort of like one, like sort of like overlapping features. Everything looks good on the screen, but there's so much on the screen at all times, and it's to the point where I never feel I never understood what I was meant to be looking at any one point, because it again is just self-indulgent. It's like, oh well, we have the money for this, we've paid for this, so it has to be on screen, and I never felt like I knew what I was meant to look at. I'll explain again I will explain all of these things in more detail in a moment. I'll dive into each individual actor, or at least the major ones who are in the film. I'll give examples of what I mean with the CGI and stuff like that. But I just want to cover everything very quickly. And then finally, I would say the director himself, Coppola. I don't know where the direction is in this film. It feels like every actor is relying on their own ability and spontaneity. It feels like scene to scene, especially Shia LaBeouf, these actors are sort of going, okay, well, I'll just do this because that's what I know, and this is how I can best, sort of embody what's on the paper. But it doesn't feel like there was ever anyone on set telling them, this is what I want, this is what I see. And that's, of course, the job of Coppola. And I just don't see his direction on screen. It feels, again, like an incredibly moneyed vision. It feels like his role in this film never got past the scripting and then the vision sort of aspects. I don't see his direction anywhere in this film. It just feels like a complete mess. It feels like actors sort of taking each scene as it comes and sort of just going, okay, well, I'll say what's on the script, but like I don't actually know what I'm meant to be doing here, because again, there's no cohesive vision. It doesn't feel like there's anyone telling these actors, this is your character in the previous scene has gone through this, so now they're reacting this way. There's just none of that. And again, that sort of links with the bloated cast, the bloated CGI setting design, all these things. It's the key word, and I'm going to use this a lot, the key word here is self-indulgent. It just feels like Coppola went, well, I've spent 120 million on this, so we better make sure that this film looks like 120 million pound or 120 million dollars worth. So I there's so much going on, and yet none of it sort of fits together. If I was to compare this film with any film that is also like sort of grandiose in vision, ironically, I would probably compare it with Avengers, Infinity War and Endgame. I know that's two films, but it's essentially a 5-6 hour experience all in one. Ironically, Coppola has criticized, the Marvelization of Hollywood. He talks about, when referencing why he fired the VFX department, he says it was because their style was formulaic and it was too Marvel driven. Ironically, at least with the first, whatever it is, 3-4 phases of the Marvel cycle, you understand what the vision is, you understand what they're getting to, that eventual end goal is Endgame. Now, regardless of your personal opinions on the movies, you can see what the vision is, you can see what they're building towards, and that eventual end is all of these characters on screen at one time in the same battle, and then it's their sacrifices, it's how do we beat Thanos? Okay, well, we have to do it together. You understand what the vision is. With Megalopolis, I don't know what the vision is, because I read out in my opening script that Coppola's main leading question for this film is the society that is currently available to us the best one possible. You never really see the society that he's offering in this utopia. And there feels like there's two competing movies in this film. One of them is Megalopolis. It's the utopia. The other one that is available is a critique of what some would probably call late stage capitalism. It's what is all around us. It's media being everywhere. It's consumerism. It's the free markets are running wild. Corporations are doing whatever they want. There's no creativity anymore. It's all business driven. And Coppola himself has criticised that sort of attitude in Hollywood. But he says himself, in interviews, that this film is about utopianism and it's about becoming a better society. But you just never see that. You never really see what he believes is this better society. There's just a few lines where Adam Driver's character Caesar Catalina will sort of say, well, this is what I envision. And also, I think, I think now is probably the right time to start getting into more specifics. Some of the lines that Adam Driver is told to say in this script are fucking atrocious. And you've just got to love Adam Driver, because the man is delivering his absolute best in every scene he's in this film. And the script just does not help him whatsoever. So there is a line where he says something about, in his perfect world, people would be more, they would be discussing art and literature and these things, rather than, presumably if we're talking about our own world, it's, oh, well, I don't like reality TV, we should be discussing highbrow literature and consuming art rather than consuming reality TV. Well, that's so pretentious. And that's even, you can say these pretentious lines. You can be pretentious if you want to be pretentious. But I have two criticisms of that. One, your movie is $120 million in budget. I don't even think the $120 million, by the way, concerns the marketing. But given how sparse trailers were and how sparse billboards and things like that were, I don't actually think the marketing was that big. So if you're going to spend $120 million on this film, and you're going to have lines like that, you better just accept that your film is pretentious, and you better not complain about no one's going to go see this film. But yet, given Coppola thought that this film was worth a $100 million marketing budget from a distributor, then I think he probably thinks that everyone is going to rush out and see this, and everyone is going to go, wow, look at this. He really is pushing us forward, isn't he? And I just don't see that. I don't think that's true. So yeah, I would say that this film is incredibly pretentious, and it's astonishing to me that this film is worth over $100 million, and that they thought that this was going to sell. Well, in particular, it's insane that Coppola thought himself that this was going to sell. I'm astounded at the fact that he thought this was gonna blow everyone's socks off, and that's, if he had got his marketing budget, this would have been worth over $200 million, and there's nothing on screen that is worth $200 million. But concerning the cast, because we were talking about Adam Driver, again, Adam Driver is fucking spectacular. If this film was any better, you would probably be saying, oh, he probably deserves at least an Oscar nomination. But because the film was so bad, I would be surprised if he gets nominated for it, because some of the lines, again, that he has to deliver are spectacularly bad. The one near the end of the film that really sticks out, and I told a friend who hadn't seen the film, and since seeing the film she's agreed with me, is the line when he says, oh, can you believe I was 12 once? Not anymore. That, to me, how is that not a Tommy Wiseau line? How is that not a line from The Room? Because it's fucking hilarious, but it's delivered sincerely. There's no oh, we know this is bad dialogue. Someone genuinely wrote that. Francis Ford Coppola himself probably wrote that line. And he just didn't see any issue with it. And he told Adam Driver, this Shakespeare, Macbeth, Hamlet, Othello level actor, has been told to deliver that line. How insane is that? That he thought that was what was, poignant and should be put in this script. And, he's talking about utopianism, and he's talking about this grand vision for this film, and yet he's wasting moments on stuff like that. Like, it's so weird to me, because I'm like, surely if this is about utopianism, you should be all about seizing every scene should be grand and should be really hitting home. Our society is wrong. Our society needs to move forward. And yet, I think maybe you could argue there's one or two scenes that really hit home how bad our society is. And there's not any scene that really shows you the utopia. Instead, where we see lines like this, and again, Adam Driver is so good, and he sells the lines, and yet even though he sells the lines, you still know it's terrible. The other two standouts from the cast for me, one in particular, but well, before I come on to Shia LaBeouf, I'll mention Giancarlo Esposito. I think he's pretty good given what he's given. But his character is so one-dimensional. You're never really given any reason for anything that he does, other than pure vendetta and power grabs. But none of it really hits home, because you don't know why he's doing anything, other than, halfway through the movie when Adam Driver ends up dating his daughter, Cicero's daughter, Julia Cicero, who's played by Natalie Emmanuel. Then you sort of understand his hate for Catalina, but it's told to you that Cicero has hated Catalina for years. So it's completely nonsensical, and you're never given a reason. Like, you're told, you're even shown that Cicero lied about Catalina murdering his wife, and that they know that she just killed herself, that she died in the via drowning. You're shown that, and yet you're never told really any reason as to why that happened. And you're sort of given the impression that Catalina's vision for Megalopolis is this sort of new thing. It's probably happened since his wife has died. I'm sort of speculating here, but again, you're kind of clutching at straws with everything in this film. So I'm sort of guessing, but yeah, I think Giancarlo Esposito does pretty well given what he's given to work with. But it's really hard to criticize anything that he does on screen, because I just feel like his lines are terrible. His character's pretty terrible. And he's in the film for a significant amount of time, so I feel like I have to reference him and just say he's fine. He does well enough because he's a good actor. But again, the script just lets him down so badly. And then the other one I want to come on to is Shia LaBeouf, because he's the best part about this film. He is so fun for no reason. And what I mean by for no reason is because I don't feel like anything he does on screen is scripted. I don't feel like anything he does on screen Coppola was telling him to do. I feel like, and when you see the film, you'll understand what I mean. I feel like Shia LaBeouf knew this film was terrible, and he just was like, I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want. And it makes for such a great villain, but nothing he does on screen fits the film around him, because he's a Joker. He's kind of meant to be this, Donald Trump like figure, who's stands up for the people. He's a man of the people. That's how he sort of portrays himself. Yet he's the son or the cousin. I think he's either the son or the nephew of John Voight's character, who owns the central bank. I say he's either the son or the nephew because it's never really made clear. I felt like for the majority of the film he was the son, and then at one point I'm pretty sure John Voight calls him his nephew, so I was a bit confused by that, like everything else in this film. But Shia LaBeouf is so much fun, and again, Coppola talks about in his interviews before the film comes out, that Shia LaBeouf was really hard to work with because he needs a director to sort of have tension with him, to say, I want it this way, and then Shia LaBeouf to say, no, I want it this way. And I feel like on screen Shia LaBeouf just got what he wanted, which was free reign to do whatever he wanted. And part of the reason I think that is the case is because I don't think Coppola was even aware of what was going on 90% of the time. You can find sources, I think it's either at Variety or Hollywood Reporter, they had sources saying that Coppola spent 90% of shoot days just in his trailer smoking weed and no one knowing what was going on. So I feel like Shia LaBeouf was just pretty much free to just go, yeah, fuck it, I'll do whatever I want because he's not here. And that just makes for such a fun character. There is literally a scene. It's meant to be like a montage of different moments of him sort of giving speeches and, you know, being on stage and like, oh, what does he do when he's on stage? And there's a legitimate moment that is in this film. He's meant to be a serious villain. He's meant to seriously rival Adam Driver's character. At one point, and I'll come on to this later, at one point, one of his henchmen shoots Catalina. And there's legitimately a moment at the end of this film where Shia LaBeouf does the, like, Dennis the Menace, finger to the nose, like, na-na-na-na-na thing. And I was in the cinema trying not to die laughing because I didn't want to ruin it for anyone else. I didn't know if anyone in the theatre was actually enjoying the film, so I didn't want to laugh out loud. But I was like, wow, that clearly was not meant to happen. But Shia LaBeouf was just like, yeah, I'll do whatever I want. And he makes for the most fun character in this film. The one thing that I do think was in the script for his character, and I do think he was told to say, is there is a line where he's expressing in a scene his anger at Catalina, and he says the line, "Who will rid me of this?" I can't remember exactly what he calls him, but essentially he's saying, "Who will rid me of Catalina?" And that's a direct quote from Henry II, who was in heated debates with Becket. I believe I can't remember Becket's first name, but he was the Archbishop of Canterbury during Henry II's reign. So, you know, you're talking like 13th century sort of England. Becket believed that the King of England should rule as a representative of God. So essentially the church should come before the state, whereas obviously Henry II was attempting to, you know, usurp control or sort of supplant the church and make himself the head of church, which eventually his namesake Henry VIII would achieve, you know, sort of, what was it, 3-4 centuries later. Henry II, in a fit of rage, apparently said, "Who will rid me of this troublesome priest?" And on the back of that, knights who had overheard him say this went and killed Becket. So Shia LaBeouf's character directly references that line. I don't mind the line in itself being used, but it just further muddies this film in terms of so much going on, because I don't know why in this film that's meant to be a Roman epic, you're referencing historical moments, and not even a subtle reference. This is a direct quote, essentially, from a figure from the 12th or 13th, I'm not entirely sure, century. Why would you do that? Because if you're a historian watching this film going, oh yeah, this is a Roman epic, and then you see that moment, you're going to be like, well, hang on, I thought this was meant to be a film inspired by the Catalina conspiracy. And so I'm sort of nitpicking here, but I just didn't understand it. And there are other moments like that where I think lines are inspired. Oh well, sorry. I think like some monologues are directly taken from Shakespeare, and so it just muddies the water because I feel like Coppola was sort of just going, oh well, what about this? This would look cool in this moment. Oh, what about this historical moment? Oh, what about this from this Shakespearean piece of fiction? Rather than just going, okay, anything we reference in this film that is historical has to come from the Roman Republic because this is a society mimicking the Roman Republic. And instead, he just sort of just blanket covers all of history. And so I think that again just muddies the script for me. It muddies a lot of the dialogue because I just feel like I'm watching an amalgamation of moments just put together. And I also think it should be mentioned that Shia LaBeouf, his main motivations for hating Catalina in the film, Claudio's moments, which is Shia LaBeouf's character, Claudio's main motivations for hating Catalina is that Claudio is in love with Natalie Emmanuel's character, Julia Cicero, and he believes that Catalina has stolen him from him. So he just goes on this like political rampage, where he, positions himself as a man of the people in order to get back at Catalina. But then when one of his henchmen mistakenly attempts to kill Catalina, he then scolds the henchman. So it's very strange. You never understand the motivations of any of the characters. Even Catalina, I don't feel like I fully understood what his motivations were. You kind of just are like, yeah, he wants to make a better society, but like, why does he want to make a better society? I couldn't fucking tell you. So I feel like the main issue I have with the film is that bloated cast, because you've also got, and I'm not going to touch on these characters too heavily, but you've got Aubrey Plaza there, you've got John Voight, you've got Natalie Emmanuel, you've got these Hollywood actors who are very good, and I don't mind them. I think they are all pretty good, but like, why are they there? Because they're essentially minor characters in the film, and yet they're constantly on screen because they're major names, and because there seems to be an obligation to just keep them on screen, because that way they'll be happy and, oh look, it's Aubrey Plaza, or oh look, it's John Voight, oh look, it's Natalie Emmanuel from Game of Thrones, and oh well, audiences will recognise them, so we have to keep them on screen for as long as possible. And there's just not much reason for any of them to be on screen, in my opinion. Because I don't understand what any of their motivations are. I don't understand how they fit into the central plot of blocking the Megalopolis utopian city from being built. It just feels very grand and self-indulgent, and it just feels like nothing was allowed to be cut from this film. And I think it's such a mess, this cast, because I think if you had these minor characters played by smaller actors, then I probably wouldn't be talking about these actors, because I just don't think it would be worth it if they were played by smaller actors. But yet, because they're major actors, either now or in the past, I feel it's necessary to talk about them, because when you go and see the film, most people will go, oh yeah, I know her, or oh yeah, I know him, and yet they just don't do very much. There's not very much reason for them to be there. And so if they're on screen just not doing very much, that's one thing if they're played by minor actors or lesser known actors. But if they're played by Hollywood A-listers who had good careers, then I feel like it's necessary to talk about them, because like, they're just so wasted in this film. And none of them are particularly bad, but again, like, they're just sort of there for the sake of it, because, oh well, this is a grand vision, so we have to have a massive cast, a major cast, a well-known cast, so that we can convey this is a serious film. You want to be here for this film because you know everyone in this cast. And yet, what is the most memorable moment from John Voight? It's the moment when he pretends he has a boner in bed because he's seen Aubrey Plaza. That's so fucking, like, pointless. There's no reason for that to happen. There's no reason for his character, as you see in that scene, to kill Aubrey Plaza. It's so dumb, like most of this film, in my opinion. And I just feel like you could cut half of this cast and it just wouldn't matter. If the main cast was like sort of shedded down to just being Adam Driver, Shia LaBeouf, and Giancarlo Esposito, I think already this film becomes 10 times better because you just eliminate half of the bullshit that happens in this film with the side characters because they're just not there. That's not me saying it's a good film, but maybe at least you've got a passable film. And then you have to give more moments and more time to those three actors. So then, does your script immediately become better because, oh, well, I have to write out their motivations, I have to explain why they're doing this, and they have to have valid reasons for everything they're doing. Rather than just, having actors on the screen for the sake of it. And I think that's where a lot of the direction is very questionable to me. I've kind of, I should probably mention as well, I've kind of abandoned doing this by section because I think this film is such a mess. I think everything just feeds into everything else. Like, I think the cast is so bloated, and because the cast is so bloated, that makes... Oh, actually, hang on, I'll explain that another way. I think the script is so bad because it has so many characters doing so many dumb things. And then because the script is so big with so many characters, it has to then have a big cast. And because there's such a big cast, I think the direction is terrible because there's so much going on. And part of the reason why the direction is so terrible is because I think Coppola doesn't know what's going on 90% of the time. And then because Coppola doesn't know what's going on 90% of the time and he's in charge of so much of it, I think the CGI is wasteful, and I don't really understand why when the CGI is used, I don't think it's explained why it's there. There's a scene when Lady Liberty is just in the middle of the street and she just falls down because it's presumed she can't she can't last in this society anymore. The weight of this country is holding her down, or whatever, or it's too much on her shoulders, or whatever, something like that. And it's just in the middle of the street. It's just between two buildings, and you're never told why that happens. It's meant to be a symbolic moment, but it's so on the nose, and it just doesn't fit anything else that's going on around it, that it just doesn't make any sense. So I don't know. I almost feel like because this film is such a mess, I feel like this video is becoming just all over the place because I have so many thoughts about this film, but I just can't collect them properly because it all feeds into one another because the film is so bad and it's so jumbled and messy. And the number one thing for this film for me is if there was just a proper editor who was allowed to just go through and cut so much of this film, I think you would probably be looking at a film that's about 35 minutes shorter, and maybe it still wouldn't be good, but it would at least be watchable. You would at least still understand what's going on. And yet, because it's Coppola's money, because he was entirely in charge of the production, I just feel like you never really understand what's going on, because he clearly, to me, insisted on everything that was shot being put into the film. And because there was no one to tell him, no, you have to cut this part, or we're not allowing this part of the script to go ahead, or we don't want this cast member because of whatever, or we think this character is pointless, remove them. Because there's none of that, he's just allowed to do whatever he wants. So yeah, I think the main issue for me is the lack of editing, and also the fact that Coppola had so much control, he just did whatever he wanted, and it bogs the film down because he clearly just insisted on everything being in. But now, like, because I'm talking about Coppola, this is a good time to mention, what does this mean for Coppola's legacy? And I'll gladly admit, I haven't watched all of Coppola's movies. I've not even watched 50% of them. But I want to list off how many films he's done. I want to list off all of them, starting off with the first one and finishing with Megalopolis. And I want to myself say how many classics I think he's got here. And then I want people out there, if you think I'm wrong, either you think he's got more or you think he's got less, just tell me. Because I want to discuss how many classics does Coppola have at this point? Because we talk about him being one of the best directors ever, but there's so many, like, either duds or films that just, you sort of go like, yeah, it was fine, or it was just bad. At this point, I feel like you're sort of talking about, like, maybe 40% of his filmography, is genuinely put up there with some of the best things ever put to screen. But with the rest of it, I just sort of look at it and go, I don't know about that one. But anyways, I'll list them off. So his first picture, Dementia 13, then You're a Big Boy Now, Finian's Rainbow, The Rain People, The Godfather, The Conversation, The Godfather Part 2, Apocalypse Now, One from the Heart, The Outsiders, The Cotton Club, Peggy Sue Got Married, Gardens of Stone, Tucker, The Man and His Dream, The Godfather Part 3, Bram Stoker's Dracula, Jack, The Rainmaker, Youth Without Youth, Tetro, Twixt, Megalopolis. So, I would say, and okay, I'll view this from the perspective of someone who thinks Megalopolis is really, really good. Say that will go on to be a classic, like 10 years in the future. Let's say that this film is really good. I'm completely in the wrong. That film's really good, and it's going to go on to be a classic. All right. So in the ones that are certified classics, you can look back and go, everyone loves that film. It's fucking great. It has a message. It has consistent themes, cinematography, great cast, all those things. I think you're probably looking at The Godfather, The Conversation, The Godfather Part 2, Apocalypse Now, and then after that, probably Megalopolis, if you think Megalopolis is that good. I don't think there's any other films in there that, personally, I hear people talk about and go, that film's fucking great. The other ones that seem to be, like, sort of, either cult followings or people who, like, are sort of, half of people like them, half of the people don't, is, something like The Outsiders or Dracula or, The Rainmaker. I hear some good things about those films, but they're not like, wow, this is great. So, to me, you're essentially talking about a full film run in a career spanning, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So 22 films, you're talking about a 4-film run that was just classic on classic on classic on classic. And then after that, he's released either duds or not home runs. And that's fine. If he's released 4 great films and then the rest are just okay to good, with even some bad films in there. But can we really say that this guy is one of the best ever? Because immediately when I think of the best ever, I think about Scorsese, and I think he's done it consistently. He might have films that people don't rate as highly. He might have films where people go, oh, that's really pretentious, I don't care about that. Or, oh, it's self-indulgent and it doesn't need to be that long. Whatever. But I think you'd be hard-pressed to find someone who go, yeah, for the last 20, 30 years, he's just not hit it at all. So, personally, I don't think I could put him in the same realm as Scorsese. What about the other ones, Kubrick. Does he hold a candle to Kubrick? Like, he's done a lot more films in his time, but are any of the last 30 years up to anything that Kubrick did? You know, like, if Coppola had done the 4 films that are like certified classics and just stopped and went, I don't care about this anymore, I've done Apocalypse Now, I'm gonna leave the industry and I don't care anymore. If he had stopped there, and then Kubrick had done what is it, his 14 films, I believe it is. I might be getting the wrong number there. You could probably make an argument of like, oh well, maybe if Coppola went as long as Kubrick and just, made like 14, 15 films. And I understand Kubrick, his career was cut short because of his untimely death. If Coppola had made, say, 4 or 5 films and then just stopped, you'd probably be looking at a very different sort of legacy now. But with him now doing Megalopolis, he calls it the best work he's ever done. This isn't a case of we're just judging this and saying, oh, it's a terrible film for him to go out on. Because likelihood is this is either his last film or he'll do one more. But he's 85 now, so I don't think it's very likely he'll get another one out. And so he's decided that this is the final film, or most likely the final film he'll get out. He's called this his best work ever. That's what he's said in interviews. So I think we have to say that he has tarnished his legacy. If he thinks this is his best work ever, then we have to look at this as legacy defining. We might not like it. We might think that he is one of the best directors ever, but he calls himself that. Oh, sorry, he calls Megalopolis the best film he's ever done. So I think this film has to do damage personally, and we'll always have those 4 or 5 films that he's done that are great, but how he's going out over the past 20, 30 years is just it is really, really sad to see. It feels like someone who's become incredibly self-indulgent and has just stuck to his vision, but hasn't had anyone else there to sort of cut out his, the unnecessary bits in his film, to tell him like, no, you're going too far. So like, if I was thinking of some examples, there's the Hitchcock story of when he screened, I think it's Psycho. Everyone told him it was great, and then his wife told him that there was a problem of when one of the characters died, they quite clearly take a gulp of air, and a dead character wouldn't do that, so the audience is going to get distracted. Hitchcock had his wife. Tarantino, until recently, had his editor. And since his editor has died, you can see that he has become more self-indulgent. His films have become very long, because if you haven't had the editor that has been with you since the beginning, how are you going to get someone else in, trust them, and then trust them when they say like, no, this is wrong, this doesn't matter, you need to cut this from the film? So I feel like Coppola has become very, very self-indulgent. He feels like someone who has shrugged off what a lot of people are saying. I think you can see that in terms of what's been going on behind the scenes, whether it be, essentially him taking advantage of female extras on sets and thinking it's okay to kiss and hug them. I think that behaviour paints a very poor light of him. I think his decision to fire the VFX team, whilst we can say, well, it's his choice because he's funding the film, if he doesn't want it, then why should they be there? That's fair enough. But also, when the film looks so muddled on the screen, well, would it not have been better to have someone there and to tell them, like, you're going too far, like, we need to cut shit out because the audience isn't going to understand what's going on? With the AI trailer, he would have had to, sign off on that. So he feels like someone who has just. I feel like he's someone who just in with this film has just thrown shit at the wall, and is just so willing to smell his own farts that he just goes like, yeah, this must be great, and there's no one around him who tells him this is shit, like this is not good. And I think that's really disappointing. I think that's really sad. And you want better for someone who, is coming to the twilight of their career. Look at Scorsese's like the twilight of his career. If Killers of the Flower Moon is his final film, that is such a fucking great film to go out on. Like, you might think that's too long, you might think it's self-indulgent, whatever, but it's so good. So it's really disappointing how we're seeing him go out. But yeah, I've gone for 50 minutes now, so I'll outro this video and I'll stop speaking. But thank you for watching. If you've gotten this far, a 50-minute video is ridiculous, especially when you consider that my previous video on Megalopolis is also 50 minutes. I'm gonna link it in the outro of this video in case you want to go back and hear my timeline of all the controversies concerning this film. I've done nearly 2 hours on just Megalopolis and Coppola, which is a fucking lot. I've done. I don't want to talk about this film anymore because I think it's really bad, and I enjoyed it in the sense of it's unintentionally funny, but it is what it is. Finally, I also want to just say, if you watched my previous video, thank you. 600 views is insane. I'm quite consistently climbing in terms of views, but 600 is insane. I didn't expect to reach, even the milestone of 500 views so quickly. So thank you if you've helped me get that far. That's ridiculous. I hope you also enjoyed this video. If you think this video is self-indulgent, like the film itself, then that's fair enough, because I can understand that. If you disagree or agree with what I say about the classics and Coppola's legacy, I would like to hear it, because, like I said, I haven't even watched 50% of Coppola's movies. I want to watch more of them, and I would like to know which ones I should just pass on and which ones I should watch. But yeah, thank you. And thank you for watching the previous video and watching any. And if you subscribe or like or whatever else, then thank you. It's really appreciated. Bye.